The Omega no one wanted, until three royal heirs chose her over everyone. Stay until the end to see how she went from invisible to unstoppable. Drop a like and comment what city you're watching from. The stone floor was cold enough to leach warmth through Elira's threadbare boots. She kept her eyes down, shoulders hunched, trying to make herself smaller than she already was. Around her, the grand hall of the Thornykeep buzzed with excitement. Silk gowns rustling, jewelry clinking, noble daughters preening like exotic birds. The air smelled of lavender and ambition. Elira didn't belong here. She'd been scrubbing floors in the servants' wing when the decree came down. Every unmated female between 18 and 25 was to attend the choosing. No exceptions. Even Omegas. Especially Omegas, the steward had sneered, though everyone knew it was just for show. A formality. The three royal pups would choose from the noble bloodlines, as they always did. As they should. "Make way for Lady Seraphine Blackwood," someone announced, and the crowd parted like water. Elira caught a glimpse of midnight hair and emerald silk before she pressed herself against the wall, trying to disappear into the stone itself. "Is that?" A beta woman's voice, dripping with disdain. "Did they actually let the kitchen Omega in here? Probably can't even read the summons. Someone had to drag her out." Laughter. Sharp and cutting. Elira's fingers curled into her palms. She'd learned long ago that fighting back only made things worse. The northern packs didn't forgive weakness, and they sure as hell didn't forgive Omegas who forgot their place. The great doors at the far end of the hall groaned open. The chatter died instantly. Alpha King Darian Thorne entered first. Even from across the room, his presence hit like a physical force. 6'4" of scarred muscle and barely leashed violence, he moved like a predator through tall grass, economical, controlled, lethal. His dark hair was pulled back, revealing a face that might have been handsome if it wasn't so hard. Gray eyes swept the crowd without warmth. He hadn't smiled in 3 years, not since the Luna Queen died giving birth to the triplets. Behind him came the royal attendants, and between them, the pups. 3 small figures, identical in their stillness. 2 boys and a girl, barely 5 years old, dressed in formal gray tunics. They didn't run or fidget like normal children. They didn't speak. According to palace gossip, they hadn't spoken since their mother's death. They just stared forward with their father's gray eyes, looking like tiny ghosts in a world too loud for them. "Ladies of the Northern Territory," Darian's voice cut through the silence like a blade through flesh. "You know why you're here. The old laws require it. My children will choose." He stepped aside. The pups didn't move. "Go on," Darian said, softer. Still a command. The girl, Elira remembered, took the first step. Her brothers, Kyle and Rowan, flanked her automatically. They moved down the line of noble daughters like they were walking through a graveyard, faces blank, eyes distant. Lady Seraphine dropped into an elegant curtsy, her smile perfect. The pups walked past her without a glance. Lady Moira, daughter of the Eastern Alpha, practically glowed with confidence. The children paused. Elira saw hope flash across Darian's face. The pups kept walking. One by one, they rejected every noble girl in the hall. Confusion rippled through the crowd. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The choosing was a formality, yes, but the royal heirs were supposed to choose someone. That was the whole point. Elira realized too late that she should have moved, should have ducked into the servants' corridor. But she'd been watching the children. Something about their hollow eyes made her chest ache, and now they were at the end of the line. They were 10 feet away, 5 feet. They stopped directly in front of her. Elira's heart hammered against her ribs. Move. Curtsy. Do something. But her body had frozen, locked in place by 3 pairs of gray eyes staring up at her with something that looked almost like recognition. "No," someone whispered. No, that's not..." Lyra reached out first. Her small hand wrapped around Elira's wrist, fingers surprisingly warm. Then Kyle grabbed her other hand. Rowan pressed against her leg, his face buried in her stained work dress. The hall erupted. "This is a mistake. She's nobody. An Omega? The royal heirs can't possibly..." "Silence!" Darian's voice cracked like thunder. The noise died, but the fury didn't. Elira could feel it radiating off everyone in the room. Disbelief, rage, humiliation. She looked down at the children clinging to her and felt something slot into place in her chest. Something that felt almost like home, which was insane because she'd never had one of those. Darian crossed the distance between them in 4 long strides. Up close, he was terrifying, all hard angles and barely contained violence. His eyes raked over her like she was a puzzle with missing pieces. "Let go of her," he told his children. His voice was quieter now, but no less absolute. They didn't move. "Now." Lyra looked up at her father for the first time since entering the hall. Her bottom lip trembled. Then she shook her head. The crowd gasped. The pups never disobeyed. They barely even reacted to anything. Darian's jaw clenched so hard Elira heard his teeth grind. He reached for Lyra's shoulder, and Rowan growled. The sound was small, high-pitched, barely a threat. But it was the first noise the boy had made in 3 years, and it stopped Darian cold. "What did you do?" The question was directed at Elira, each word sharp enough to draw blood. "Nothing," she managed. Her voice came out rough, unused to being heard. I don't even know them. I just..." "Which?" The accusation came from Lady Seraphine, her perfect face twisted with disgust. "She's used dark magic, manipulated them somehow. There's no other explanation." The crowd murmured agreement. Of course. Magic was easier to believe than the alternative, that 3 royal children who could have anyone might actually want an unwanted Omega from the kitchens. "I'm not a witch," Elira said, but her voice was drowned out by the rising accusations. "She should be interrogated, imprisoned, executed for touching the royal heirs." "Enough." Darian grabbed Elira's arm, his grip iron hard. The children cried out, trying to hold on, but palace guards moved in to pull them away. Lyra's scream cut through Elira like glass. The boys thrashed in the guards' arms, fighting for the first time in their lives. "Take her to the North Tower," Darian ordered, dragging Elira toward the side exit. "Lock her in. No one speaks to her until I say otherwise." "The children?" Elira twisted against his hold, watching the pups struggle. "They're scared, please." "You don't get to talk about my children." His voice was arctic. "You don't get to talk at all." He shoved her through a doorway, and 2 guards grabbed her arms before she could fall. The last thing she saw before they hauled her away was Lyra's face, tears streaming down her cheeks, reaching for someone who couldn't reach back. The North Tower was exactly as miserable as it sounded. A single round room at the top of 200 stone steps, with walls so thick no one would hear her scream. 1 narrow window, 1 straw mattress on the floor, 1 bucket in the corner that she tried very hard not to think about. Elira sat with her back against the wall, knees pulled to her chest, and tried to understand what had just happened. The children had chosen her. Why? She'd never seen them before today, never spoken to them. She was nobody, literally. She didn't even have a proper last name. Vance was what the pack called orphans without bloodlines. It meant vacant, empty. But those kids had looked at her like she was anything but empty. And that feeling when they touched her, like something sleeping had stirred, like her bones recognized theirs. Impossible. Hours crawled past. The sun moved across the narrow window. Elira dozed fitfully, jerking awake every time footsteps echoed on the stairs. But no one came. No food. No water. No explanation. She was going to die here. She knew that. The Northern Packs didn't tolerate threats to their hierarchy, and she'd somehow become a threat just by existing in the wrong place at the wrong time. The thought should have scared her more than it did, but she'd been living on borrowed time since the Night Raiders had burned her birth pack to the ground 12 years ago, since she'd been found wandering the forest alone, too young to remember her real name or where she'd come from. The Thornakeep had taken her in, not out of kindness, but because Omegas were useful, cheap labor, invisible hands that kept the Great Pack running. Being invisible had kept her alive. Until today. Tap, tap, tap. Elira's eyes snapped open. The sound was coming from the window. She scrambled to her feet, crossed the small room, and looked out. Nothing but darkness and stars. The drop was easily 50 feet to the courtyard below, but the tapping continued, rhythmic and deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. She pressed her face against the glass, trying to see. A small face appeared on the other side, hanging upside down. Alira yelped and stumbled back. Then her brain caught up with her eyes. Kyle. The boy was dangling from somewhere above the window, held by what looked like a rope made of knotted bedsheets. His gray eyes were wide and serious as he gestured frantically at the latch. "You can't be here," Alira whispered, even though he obviously couldn't hear her through the glass. "You'll get hurt." He pointed at the latch again, more insistent. Alira's hand shook as she fumbled with the mechanism. It was old, probably hadn't been opened in years. The metal was stiff and it gave with a grinding shriek. Cold night air rushed in as she pushed the window open. Cale grabbed the frame to steady himself, then looked up and made a sharp gesture. The rope started rising. Within seconds, 2 more faces appeared. "No," Alira breathed. "No, you can't. This is—" Lyra reached through the window and grabbed Alira's collar, pulling herself close enough that their noses almost touched. The little girl's eyes were fierce. "Needed you," she whispered. The first words she'd spoken in 3 years came out rough and urgent. "Needed you now." Then she climbed through the window like it was the most natural thing in the world. Her brothers followed, and suddenly the tiny cell was full of royal children who were definitely, absolutely, going to get Alira killed. "How did you even—" Alira stared at them. "Does your father know you're here?" 3 identical head shakes. "The guards?" More head shaking. "You just climbed out of the palace, 3 5-year-olds, scaled the outside of a tower, in the middle of the night." Rowan nodded proudly. "Oh, we're all going to die," Alira said. "They'll think I kidnapped you. I'll be executed before dawn." Lyra tugged on her sleeve. When Alira looked down, the little girl pointed at the thin mattress, then at herself and her brothers. "You want to sleep here?" Nods all around. "In a prison cell, instead of your warm, safe beds in the palace." More nodding. Alira should have marched them back to the window immediately, should have shouted for guards, should have done literally anything except what she did next, which was sit down on the mattress and let 3 traumatized children pile into her lap like puppies. They fit perfectly. That was the terrifying part. Lyra against her right side, Kyle against her left, Rowan sprawled across both of them. Their small bodies radiated heat and something else, that same bone-deep recognition she'd felt in the hall. "I don't understand," Alira whispered into Lyra's hair. "Why me?" "Smells right," Rowan mumbled, already half asleep. "You smell like home," Kale finished quietly. Alira's throat tightened. She'd never been anyone's home. She'd never been anyone's anything. But these 3 broken kids were looking at her like she was the answer to a question they'd been asking for years. She wrapped her arms around them and felt tears slip down her cheeks. Silent, shocked, terrified tears. Because this couldn't last. This wouldn't last. As soon as someone discovered they were missing, guards would storm the tower, and whatever this fragile, impossible thing was would shatter. But for now, just for this one stolen moment, Alira let herself pretend she was someone worth choosing. The children's breathing evened out. They slept. For the first time in 3 years, they slept without nightmares. And Alira kept watch over them like the fierce, protective thing she didn't know she could be, while the moon climbed higher and the moments ticked away toward dawn and discovery. Morning came too soon. Footsteps on the stairs. Multiple sets. Moving fast. Alira was awake instantly, her heart in her throat. The children stirred, sensing her tension. "You have to go," she hissed, trying to untangle herself from their grip. "Now, before they—" The door slammed open so hard it cracked against the stone wall. Darian filled the doorway, and behind him were at least 6 guards with weapons drawn. His eyes locked onto his children, and the expression that crossed his face was complex enough to make Alira's chest hurt. Relief, fury, fear, confusion, all of it crashing together. "Papa," Lyra said clearly, her voice still rusty but strong. "Don't take her." Darian's gaze snapped to Alira. She saw him take in the scene. His children wrapped around a prisoner, their faces peaceful instead of hollow, alive instead of empty. And something flickered in those cold gray eyes, something that looked almost like pain. "Step away from her," he said to the children, quieter than before. almost gentle. No, Kael said. She didn't do anything wrong, Rowan added. We came here. We climbed. You, Darian's voice caught. You climbed? Out the window, Lyra confirmed. Down the wall. We had to. She needed us. She needed you? Darian's eyes bore into Elira like he was trying to see through her skin into whatever he thought she was hiding. What did you promise them? What lies? I didn't promise anything, Elira said, and her voice came out steadier than she felt. I don't know why they're here. I don't know why they chose me, but I didn't manipulate them. I didn't use magic. She looked down at the three fierce little faces. I just existed in the wrong place. Silence stretched like a drawn bowstring. Then Darian made a sharp gesture, and the guards surged forward. They grabbed Elira's arms, hauled her to her feet. The children cried out, trying to hold on, but adult hands pried them away. Take her to the interrogation chambers, Darian said flatly. I want answers. There's nothing to tell. Elira struggled against the guard's grip as they dragged her toward the door. Over her shoulder, she could see Lyra fighting against her father's hold, tears streaming down her face again. I'm just an Omega. I'm nobody. I can't explain it any better than you can. Then you're going to die not understanding, Darian said, and his voice was so empty it made her blood run cold. Because whatever this is, whatever game you're playing with my children, ends today. The guards yanked her through the doorway. The last thing she heard was Lyra screaming her name, a name the little girl shouldn't even know because Elira had never told them. But somehow, they knew. Somehow, they'd always known. The interrogation chamber was underground, which meant no windows and no hope. They chained her wrist to a chair bolted into the floor. 2 guards flanked the door. A third one, older, scarred with dead eyes, circled her slowly. The Alpha King wants to know what you are, he said conversationally. So do I. Been working this job 30 years, never seen kids act like that over anyone, much less... His lip curled. Well, you know what you are. Elira said nothing. There was nothing to say that wouldn't make this worse. See, here's what I think. He leaned against the table behind her, casual. I think you're Blackwood's spy. They've been trying to get inside the Thornakeep for months. What better way than through the royal brats? Get them attached, use them as leverage, destroy us from the inside. I've never left the Thornakeep, Elira said quietly. I was brought here when I was 6. I've been a servant ever since. You can check the records. Oh, we did. Know what we found. He moved so fast she didn't see it coming, grabbed her hair, wrenched her head back. Nothing. No birth records, no pack identification. You just appeared one night after a raid. Convenient. Pain lanced through her scalp. She bit her lip to keep from crying out. Maybe you should have stayed invisible, he continued. Kept your head down. Died quiet like a good little Omega. But you got greedy. Thought you could climb above your station. I didn't. Shut up. He released her hair and walked to the table, where several implements were laid out in neat rows. Knives, brands, things without names. We're going to have a long conversation, you and I, and by the end of it, you're going to tell me exactly who sent you. Or... He picked up a thin blade, examined it like a jeweler examining a diamond. Well, there is no or. You're going to talk. The door opened. Everyone turned. Darian stood in the doorway, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Out, he told the guards. My lord, we haven't... Out. They left, quickly. Darian closed the door behind them. For a long moment, he just stared at Elira, his expression unreadable. Then he crossed to where she sat and crouched down so they were eye level. My children spoke today, he said quietly. First time in 3 years. Know what they said? Elira shook her head, not trusting her voice. They said if I hurt you, they'd hate me forever. His jaw clenched. My 5-year-old daughter looked me in the eye and told me she'd rather die than let me execute you. I'm sorry, Elira whispered. I don't know why. Stop saying that. He stood abruptly, started pacing. Everyone keeps saying you're a witch, a spy, a manipulator, but I've seen manipulators. I've killed manipulators. And you, he gestured at her, frustrated. You're just a terrified Omega who has no idea what's happening. Then let me go, Elira said. Send me away. I'll leave the territory. You'll never see me again, And your children will forget. They won't. The words came out harsh. I tried to make them eat breakfast. They refused, wouldn't speak, just sat there staring at the door like you might walk through it. They've gone back to how they were. Empty. His hands curled into fists. And I can't lose them again. I can't watch them disappear into that silence. Understanding hit Elira like cold water. You need me to fix them. I need you to explain them. Darian stopped pacing, faced her directly. That feeling, when they touched you. Did you feel it? She hesitated, nodded. What was it? I don't know. It was like... She struggled for words. Like something inside me recognized something inside them. Like we were... Bonded, Darian finished, and the word came out like a curse. Which is impossible. You're not pack, you're not family, you're not... He cut himself off, breathing hard. There's no reason for it. Maybe there doesn't need to be a reason, Elira said quietly. Maybe it just is. Darian laughed, but there was no humor in it. Nothing just is in this world. Everything has a purpose, a price, a consequence. He moved closer, studying her face like he was looking for answers written in her skin. So what's yours? What do you want? To not die, she said honestly. That's it. That's all I've ever wanted. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached past her and unlocked the manacles around her wrists. You're going to stay in the East Wing, he said as the chains fell away. Guest quarters. Under guard, but comfortable. You'll see my children twice a day, morning and evening, supervised. If you try to run, you die. If you try to hurt them, you die. If I find out this is a trick, you die slowly. Understand? Elira rubbed her wrists, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. You're not going to execute me? Not yet. His expression was still hard, still wary. But don't mistake mercy for trust. I'm doing this for them, not you, the moment they don't need you anymore. I know, Elira said. I know exactly what I am to you. A tool. A means to an end. Something flickers across his face, maybe surprise that she understood so clearly, maybe respect, maybe nothing at all. Can you walk? He asked. She nodded and stood, swaying slightly. He didn't offer to help, just watched her steady herself, then gestured toward the door. As they climbed back up toward light and air and a life she still couldn't quite believe she'd been granted, Elira felt it again, that pull, that impossible connection, thrumming through her chest like a second heartbeat, and she knew with sudden terrible certainty that this wasn't over. Whatever had awakened when those children chose her, it was just beginning. The East Wing guest quarters were nicer than anywhere Elira had ever slept. A real bed with clean sheets, a fireplace, windows that actually opened. But the two guards posted outside her door were a constant reminder that this wasn't freedom. It was just a prettier cage. She stood at the window watching the training grounds below, where wolves in human form sparred with brutal efficiency. The Northern Packs didn't believe in gentle. They believed in survival, in strength, in dominance. An Omega watching from a tower was about as useful as a lamb studying wolves. A knock at the door made her turn. Lady Elira, one of the guards said stiffly. The title was meant as mockery. Everyone knew she wasn't a lady. The children are here for their morning visit. Her pulse quickened. She'd been in these quarters for 2 days, seeing Kyle, Rowan, and Lyra for exactly 1 hour in the morning and 1 in the evening. Always supervised, always watched. The rest of the time, she was alone with her thoughts and the growing certainty that she was living on borrowed time. The door opened wider, and 3 small figures rushed in like a dam breaking. They hit her simultaneously, Lyra wrapping around her waist, the boys grabbing her hands, and that feeling bloomed in her chest again. Warmth, recognition, rightness. Behind them, Darian leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. He'd been present for every visit, watching with those cold gray eyes like he was waiting for her to slip up, to reveal whatever sinister plan he was convinced she was hiding. Good morning, Elira said to the children, ignoring him. She'd learned that was easier than trying to parse his expressions. Tell us another story, Rowan demanded, tugging her toward the chair by the fire. The one about the fox and the snow hare. You've heard that one 3 times already. Don't care, Lyra said, climbing into her lap the moment Elira sat down. Like your voice, Elira's throat tightened. These kids had been silent for 3 years, and now they wanted to hear her voice. It didn't make sense. Nothing about this made sense. But she told the story anyway, watching the children's faces light up at the familiar parts. Kyle acted out the fox's hunt. Rowan made sound effects. Lyra just pressed closer, her small hand clutching Elira's shirt like she was afraid she'd disappear. From the corner of her eye, Elira saw Darian shift. His expression had changed, less suspicious, more confused. Like he was seeing something he didn't understand and didn't want to. When the story ended, Rowan looked up at her with serious gray eyes. "Are you going to leave?" Elira glanced at Darian. "I don't know. That's not up to me." "Papa says you might be dangerous," Kael said matter-of-factly. "Are you?" "No," Elira said honestly. "I'm the least dangerous person you'll ever meet." "Then why does everyone hate you?" Lyra's question was so blunt it knocked the air from Elira's lungs. "Lyra," Darian said sharply, "that's enough." "But they do," the little girl insisted, turning to look at her father. "I heard Lady Seraphine talking. She said Elira shouldn't be alive, that She stumbled over the word. "Paul looting the bloodline just by breathing our air." Elira's hands curled into fists. She'd heard worse, been called worse, but hearing it repeated by a 5-year-old made her want to break something. "People fear what they don't understand," she said carefully. "And I'm different. That scares them." "Being different isn't bad," Rowan said. "No," Elira agreed, "but people don't always see it that way." Darian pushed off from the doorframe. "Time to go," he said to the children. "Your tutors are waiting." The protests were immediate and loud. Lyra clung tighter. The boys planted themselves on either side of Elira's chair like tiny guards. 5 more minutes, Kael negotiated. "Now." "Please, Papa," Lyra said, and her eyes went wide and liquid. "We'll be good all day. Promise." "Just 5 more. You have 3 seconds to get moving, or there's no evening visit." The threat worked. The children untangled themselves reluctantly, shooting Elira looks that clearly said, "We'll be back." As they filed toward the door, Lyra paused and wrapped her arms around Elira's neck. "Don't leave," she whispered. "Don't let them make you." Before Elira could respond, Darian pulled his daughter away, gently but firmly. The door closed behind them, and Elira was alone again. She sat in the silence, feeling the ghost of their warmth, and tried not to think about how much it would hurt when this all fell apart. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Elira lay in the too-soft bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. The bond she felt with the children was growing stronger. She could sense them even when they weren't in the room, a constant awareness humming at the edge of her consciousness. And underneath that, fainter but undeniable, was something else. Something that felt like Darian, which was insane. He hated her, suspected her, would probably kill her the moment she stopped being useful. But she could feel him anyway, a dark, heavy presence somewhere in the keep, radiating controlled fury and grief so old it had turned to stone. She rolled over, punched the pillow, tried to force her brain to shut off. A sound at the window made her freeze. Not tapping this time, scratching, like claws on glass. Elira sat up slowly, heart hammering. The window was closed, latched from the inside. Nothing should be able to... A face appeared. Not human. Wolf. The creature was massive, with silver-white fur and eyes that glowed amber in the darkness. It perched on the narrow ledge outside her 3rd-story window like gravity was optional, watching her with unnerving intelligence. Then it shifted. Bones cracked and reformed. Fur receded. Within seconds, a naked woman crouched where the wolf had been, lean and scarred, with close-cropped dark hair and those same amber eyes. She pressed a finger to her lips. Quiet. Then she opened the window from the outside, which should have been impossible, and slipped into the room with predatory grace. "Don't scream," the woman said softly, "or the guards will come, and I'll have to kill them. I'd rather not. Too messy." Elira's mouth had gone dry. "Who are you?" "Someone who's going to save your life." "Maybe." The woman prowled to the door, listened for a moment, then turned back. "Name's Mara. I'm from the Shadow Ridge Pack. You've probably never heard of us. We like it that way." "What do you want?" "Not what I want, what you need." Mara crossed back to the bed, moving with that eerie wolf-light step. "You're in danger." Real danger. Not from Darien. He's too busy being confused to kill you yet. But there are others. Others who know what you are. I don't know what I am, Elira said, frustrated. Everyone keeps saying that like it means something, but I'm just a lightbringer. Mara cut her off. One of the last, probably. Your birth pack was wiped out 12 years ago because of what you are. And now that you've revealed yourself, stupidly I might add, they're coming for you again. The room tilted. Who's coming? The Voidclaw pack. They've been hunting Lightbringers for decades, killed dozens. You survived because you were a child, because you didn't know what you were, because you kept your head down and your power locked away. But the moment those kids bonded with you? Mara shook her head. You lit up like a beacon. Every wolf with sense can feel it now. And Voidclaw knows you're here. I don't have any power, Elira said desperately. I can't. I've never... You will. Mara's expression was grim. When the threat is real enough. When someone you love is dying. That's when it comes. And trust me, sweetheart, that's going to happen sooner than you think. Voidclaw doesn't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They're going to attack this keep, and they're going to take you. And if they can't take you, Zaya, they'll kill me. Everyone here, you, the kids, Darien, every wolf in the Thornkeep, they'll burn it all just to make sure you don't survive. Mara moved to the window, glanced out. I'm telling you this because my alpha believes Lightbringers should be protected, not slaughtered. But we can't do it alone. You need to convince Darien that the threat is real. He won't listen to me, Elira said. He barely trusts me enough to let me see his children. Then you better get creative. Mara swung a leg over the windowsill. Because Voidclaw's scouts were spotted at the eastern border 2 days ago. They're coming, soon. And when they do... She locked eyes with Elira. You better hope that bond you feel is strong enough to save everyone you're about to get killed. Then she was gone, shifting mid-leap, a white wolf disappearing into the darkness. Elira stood frozen, her mind reeling. Lightbringer. Voidclaw. Attack. The words circled like vultures. She had to tell someone, had to warn. The door burst open. Darien filled the doorway, flanked by guards with drawn weapons. His eyes swept the room, landing on the open window, then on her. Who is here? He demanded. Elira's breath caught. How did you... I felt it. He crossed to her in 3 strides, grabbed her shoulders. Someone was in this room. Who? The bond. He'd felt the intrusion through the bond. A wolf, Elira said quickly. From Shadow Ridge Pack, she said. She saw his expression darken. You know them? Spies and assassins. Darien released her, gestured sharply at the guards. Search the grounds. Find her. Wait! Elira grabbed his arm before he could turn away. She came to warn me. Us. There's another pack, Voidclaw. They're coming for me. For all of us. Darien stared down at her hand on his arm like it was a snake. She let go. Voidclaw, he repeated flatly. She said they'd been hunting. Elira hesitated. Hunting people like me. Lightbringers. Whatever that means. And they know I'm here, and they're going to attack, and... Stop. Darien held up a hand. Just stop. Do you hear yourself? Mysterious visitors in the night. Ancient enemies. Secret bloodlines. You sound like a bad fairy tale. I know how it sounds, Elira said, desperation creeping into her voice. But why would she lie? What does she gain from... Chaos. Darien's voice was hard. Confusion. Getting us to waste resources chasing shadows while the real threat, whatever it is, moves into position. It's basic strategy. Or she's telling the truth, and we're all about to die because you're too stubborn to listen. The words hung in the air between them. Elira realized too late that she'd just yelled at the Alpha King, in his own keep, while technically his prisoner. But Darien didn't explode. He just looked at her with something that might have been tired amusement. You really believe this? He said quietly. I don't know what to believe, Elira admitted, but I know what I felt when your children chose me. And I know that feeling is real, even if nothing else is. So if there's even a chance she's right, if there's any possibility that they're in danger, then I'll investigate. Darien cut her off. I'll send scouts to the eastern border, check for Voidclaw signs, but his expression hardened. If this is a trick, if you're working with Shadow Ridge to infiltrate this pack, I will end you, children's bond or not, Understand? Elira nodded, not trusting her voice. Darian turned to leave, then paused at the door. Lock the window, he said without looking back. And next time someone shows up in the middle of the night with convenient warnings, try not to look so eager to believe them. Then he was gone, taking his guards with him. Elira sank onto the bed, trembling. She'd done what she could, passed the warning along. Whether Darian believed her or not was out of her hands now. But as she crossed to the window and wrestled it shut, she couldn't shake the feeling that Mara had been telling the truth, and that time was running out faster than anyone realized. The next morning's visit was tense. Darian stood rigid by the door while the children clustered around Elira, and the weight of unspoken things made the air thick. She tried to act normal, told stories, played simple games, answered their endless questions, but her mind kept circling back to amber eyes and warnings in the dark. "Something's wrong," Elira said suddenly, staring up at her. "You smell scared." Elira forced a smile. "I'm fine." "Liar." Kyle tilted his head. "Your heart beats too fast. What happened?" These children were too perceptive, too aware. It was unsettling and heartbreaking in equal measure. "Nothing you need to worry about," Elira said gently. "But we do worry." Rowan pressed against her side. "We worry all the time now. Before you came, we didn't worry about anything, didn't feel anything, and now—" His small face scrunched up. "Now everything feels big and scary and important." "I'm sorry," Elira whispered. "I didn't mean to—" "Don't apologize," Lyra's voice was fierce. "Feeling is better than empty, even if it hurts." From the doorway, Darian made a sound, something between a cough and a growl. When Elira looked at him, his expression was complicated, raw. "Time," he said roughly. The children protested, but less than usual, like they sensed the tension and didn't want to make it worse. As they filed out, Lyra turned back one last time. "Papa feels it too," she said simply. "The bond. He just doesn't want to." Then she was gone, and Elira was alone with the king. Darian didn't leave immediately. He stood there, one hand on the door, jaw working like he was chewing on words he didn't want to say. "The scouts found tracks," he finally said. "Eastern border, at least 30 wolves, moving in formation, military precision." He met her eyes. "Void claw colors." Elira's stomach dropped. So she was telling the truth. "Looks like it." Darian's expression was stone. "Which means you're exactly what they want, and I have a choice to make." "What kind of choice?" "Give you to them. Let them take you and leave. They might accept that trade, might leave the pack alone if they get what they came for." The words hit like fists. Elira had known this was a possibility, had known from the beginning that she was expendable, but hearing it out loud still hurt. "Or," she managed, "or we fight." Darian stepped into the room, closed the door behind him. "We fortify. We prepare. We turn this keep into a fortress and make them bleed for every inch. But that means risking everyone, my children, my pack, my entire territory, for an Omega I barely know and don't trust." "Then give me to them," Elira said quietly. "It's the smart choice." "Is it?" Darian crossed to her, and there was something dangerous in his eyes. "Because my children, who haven't cared about anything in 3 years, would never forgive me. They'd hate me, probably try to follow you, and I'd lose them all over again." He stopped inches from her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off him. "So tell me, Elira Vance, tell me why I should risk everything for you." "I don't know," she said honestly. "I can't give you a reason that makes sense, but—" She met his eyes, refusing to look away even though his gaze felt like standing too close to fire. "But I think you already made your choice, or you wouldn't be here asking." Darian's jaw clenched. For a moment she thought he might grab her, might shake her or kiss her, or do something equally violent and confusing. Instead, he stepped back. "You're right," he said roughly. "I did. We fight, and may the old gods help us all." Relief and terror crashed through her in equal measure. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Darian moved to the window, looked out over the training grounds. "Voidclaw doesn't just attack, they destroy, burn, salt the earth. If we do this, if we survive, the Thornakeep will never be the same." "It's already not the same," Elira said softly. 3 kids who didn't speak for 3 years are talking again. That's worth fighting for. Darian's shoulders tensed. They spoke because of you, which means... He turned, and the expression on his face was almost vulnerable. Which means I can't lose you either. And I hate that. I hate needing someone. Depending on someone. It makes me weak. No, Ilara said. It makes you human. I'm not human, Darian said flatly. I'm alpha of the most brutal pack in the Northern Territories. I've killed men with my bare hands. I've made decisions that haunt me. I don't get to be human. Then be a father, Ilara shot back. Be the person your children need. That's enough. Silence stretched between them, heavy with things neither could say. Then Darian crossed to the door. Get some rest, he said without looking at her. Tonight, we start preparations. Tomorrow, he paused, hand on the latch. Tomorrow, you're going to start training. Training for what? Survival. He glanced back and his eyes were hard. Because bond or not, magic or not, if Voidclaw breaches these walls, you're going to have to fight. And right now, you don't know how. Before she could respond, he was gone. Ilara stood in the empty room, her heart racing, and tried to process what had just happened. Darian was choosing to protect her, to risk everything. Because of his children, because of a bond he didn't understand and clearly resented. But also, and this was the terrifying part, because of something else. Something growing between them that neither wanted to acknowledge. She could feel it through the bond. That dark, heavy presence that was distinctly him. And underneath the anger and suspicion and grief, there was something else. Recognition. Like he felt it too. That impossible pull. That sense of rightness that had no logical explanation. It should have made her happy. Should have felt like hope. Instead, it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting for someone to push. Training started at dawn. Ilara was escorted to the practice yard by 2 stone-faced guards who looked like they'd rather be escorting her to an execution. The space was empty except for one figure, a woman with iron-gray hair and scars crisscrossing her arms. You're the Omega, the woman said flatly, the one who's got the whole pack twisted up. I didn't mean to... Don't care, well... The woman tossed her a wooden practice sword. I'm Kessa, head of pack defense. The king says you need to learn to not die in a fight, so let's see what you've got. Ilara caught the sword awkwardly. I know, it's obvious. Kessa drew her own practice blade, moved into a fighting stance. Rule 1, stop apologizing. Rule 2, stop expecting mercy. Out here you fight or you die. Now show me your stance. Ilara tried to copy Kessa's posture, failed miserably. You're holding it like a broom, Kessa said, disgusted. It's a weapon. Grip it like you mean it. I don't know how to mean it. Then learn fast. Kessa lunged. Ilara barely got the practice sword up in time. The impact rattled through her arms, nearly knocked the weapon from her grip. She stumbled back, completely off balance. Kessa didn't give her time to recover. She pressed forward, raining blows that Ilara could only barely deflect. Each hit drove her back another step. Her arms burned. Her breath came in gasps. You're dead, Kessa announced, her blade stopping an inch from Ilira's throat. 6 different times. Dead, dead, dead. What did you do wrong? Everything? Ilara panted. Specifically. I don't know. I've never done this before. Exactly. Kessa lowered her weapon. You've spent your whole life being invisible, making yourself small, but you can't hide in a fight. You have to be big, loud. You have to claim space and mean it. She demonstrated, her entire body language shifting from neutral to predatory in a heartbeat. Like this. Own it. Ilara tried. Felt ridiculous. I can't. Stop saying that. Kessa's voice cracked like a whip. I don't care if you can't. You're going to anyway. Because those kids you're bonded to, they're worth protecting. And right now, you couldn't protect a mouse from a kitten. Shame burned through Ilira's chest. I know. Then prove you're willing to learn. Kessa raised her practice sword again. Again. And this time, hit me like you mean it. They went again. And again. Ilara got knocked down more times than she could count. Her muscles screamed, her hands blistered. But slowly, painfully slowly, something started to shift. She stopped flinching before the blow landed. She started to anticipate where Kessa would strike next. She found her balance. By the time the sun reached its peak, Elira was bruised, bleeding from a split lip, and so exhausted she could barely stand. But she'd landed 3 solid hits on Kessa. 3 hits out of probably 200 exchanges. It wasn't much, but it was something. Better, Kessa said grudgingly. Still terrible, but better. Same time tomorrow. As Elira limped back toward the keep, she felt eyes on her. She looked up and saw Darian watching from a high window, his expression unreadable. Their eyes met across the distance. Then he turned away, disappearing into shadow. But she'd felt it, that flare of something through the bond. Not quite approval, not quite respect, but acknowledgement. She was trying. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Oh, that night, the attack began. Elira woke to screaming, to the sound of metal on metal, to smoke thick enough to taste. She stumbled to the window and saw the eastern wall crawling with wolves, massive, black-furred creatures with eyes that glowed red in the firelight. Voidclaw. They'd breached the outer defenses, and now they were pouring into the keep like a flood. And they were heading straight for the children's wing. Elira didn't think, didn't plan. She just ran. Out her door, past the guards who were scrambling toward the fighting, down corridors filled with smoke and chaos. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed. But she could feel them. Kale, Rowan, Lyra, bright points of terror in her mind. They were awake. They were scared. And something was wrong. She burst into their chambers and found carnage. 2 guards down, throats torn out. The windows shattered. And standing over the children's beds, a wolf the size of a horse, black fur matted with blood, red eyes fixed on 3 small figures huddled together. No, Elira breathed. The wolf's head swung toward her, its lips peeled back, revealing teeth like knives. Then it lunged. Elira threw herself sideways as the wolf's jaws snapped shut where her head had been. She hit the floor hard, rolled, came up with nothing but her bare hands and raw terror. The creature landed between her and the children. It was massive up close, easily 500 pounds of muscle and rage. Blood dripped from its muzzle. The guard's blood. "Run!" Elira screamed at the kids. "Get out! Get—" The wolf lunged again. This time she wasn't fast enough. Its shoulder caught her ribcage and sent her crashing into the wall. Pain exploded through her side. She tasted copper. Through blurring vision, she saw Lyra scrambling off the bed, saw Kyle trying to pull his sister toward the door. But Rowan had frozen, staring at the wolf with wide, terrified eyes. "Move!" Elira choked out, struggling to her feet. Every breath felt like knives. The wolf's attention swung back to Rowan. It took one deliberate step toward the boy, then another, playing with its prey. Something inside Elira cracked. She didn't remember grabbing the broken chair leg from the floor, didn't remember charging. She just found herself driving the splintered wood into the wolf's flank with every ounce of strength she had left. The creature howled, a sound that shook the windows, and spun on her. Its paw caught her across the chest, claws raking through fabric and skin. She went down hard, the chair leg clattering away. The wolf stood over her, red eyes burning. Its breath reeked of death. It opened its jaws wide. Then a roar split the air, deeper, more primal than anything Elira had ever heard. A second wolf exploded through the doorway. Gray fur, massive shoulders, eyes like winter storms. It hit the Voidclaw wolf with the force of an avalanche, and the 2 creatures went down in a tangle of snapping teeth and tearing claws. Darian. She knew it without knowing how. Felt him through the bond, fury and fear, and something absolutely feral. The fight was brutal, the room too small, furniture shattered, walls cracked. The children screamed, "Get them out!" Darian's voice, human words from a wolf's throat, harsh and wrong but understandable. "Now!" Elira forced herself up, ignoring the blood streaming down her chest. She grabbed Rowan, shoved him toward his siblings. "Go! Run!" "But you—" Lyra's face was streaked with tears. "I'll be right behind you. Go!" Kale grabbed his sister's hand and pulled. They ran. Elira turned back to see Darian pin the Voidclaw wolf, jaws locked around its throat. But the creature twisted, got its hind legs up, raked claws across Darian's belly. He yelped, a sound of pure pain, and his grip loosened. The Voidclaw wolf threw him off, lunged for the doorway where the children had just disappeared. No! Elira grabbed a piece of shattered table and hurled it. The wood struck the wolf's head. It barely slowed it down, but it was enough to make it hesitate, to make it turn, to make it come for her instead. Elira backed up until her spine hit the wall. Nowhere left to run. The wolf stalked closer, lips peeled back in what looked almost like a smile. She was going to die. She knew that. But the children were getting away, and that had to be enough. The wolf crouched, muscles bunching for the killing leap. Then Darian hit it from the side like a battering ram. They crashed through the window in an explosion of glass and wood, tumbling 3 stories down into the courtyard below. Elira ran to the window, looked down. Both wolves were already back on their feet, circling each other. Darian was limping, blood matting his gray fur. But he put himself between the Voidclaw wolf and the keep, snarling defiance. Around them, the battle raged. Thornykeep wolves fought desperately against the Voidclaw assault. Fire had spread to the eastern barracks. The air was thick with smoke and screaming. They were losing. Elira could see it even from up here. The Voidclaw wolves were bigger, faster, more vicious. They fought like they had nothing to lose, like death was just another weapon. A hand grabbed her shoulder and she spun, fist raised. Easy! Kessa ducked the wild swing. It's me! We need to move. The children are in the safe room, but... Her eyes widened as she took in Elira's injuries. You're hurt. Doesn't matter. Elira pressed a hand to her bleeding chest, felt the wet heat of it. Darian's down there. He needs... The king can handle himself. Kessa grabbed her arm. You're the target. As long as you're exposed, they'll keep coming. We need to get you somewhere secure. I'm not hiding while people die for me. You don't get a choice. Kessa started pulling her toward the door. King's orders. Keep you alive no matter... A wolf burst through the doorway, smaller than the first, but just as vicious. Kessa shoved Elira aside and shifted mid-step, her body exploding into a rust-colored wolf that met the attacker head-on. Elira stumbled back, her vision swimming, blood loss. She was losing too much blood. She pressed harder against the wounds, but the blood just kept coming, hot and slick. Her legs felt weak. The room tilted. Through the broken window, she heard Darian howl, not in rage this time, in pain. The bond flared white-hot in her chest. She felt his agony like it was her own, felt him struggling, failing, going down under the weight of 3 Voidclaw wolves that had swarmed him. He was dying. And if he died, what happened to the children? What happened to... No, Elira whispered. Her hands started to shake. Not from fear, from something else, something building beneath her skin like pressure in a sealed container. No, no, no. Kessa and the Voidclaw wolf were still fighting, destroying what was left of the room. Neither paid attention to Elira as she sank to her knees, as that pressure kept building, kept growing, kept demanding release. She thought of Lyra's fierce little face, Kael's serious eyes, Rowan's small hand in hers. She thought of Darian, cold and hard and grieving, letting his walls crack just enough to let her in. She thought of all the years she'd spent invisible, silent, afraid. And something inside her said enough. The pressure exploded outward. Light erupted from Elira's body, pure, radiant, blinding. It filled the room, the corridor, poured out through the broken window like liquid sun. Every wolf in the courtyard froze, shielding their eyes. The Voidclaw wolf fighting Kessa shrieked and fled, fur smoking where the light touched it. And Elira felt everything, every heartbeat in the keep, every breath, every wound. She could sense them all, her people, she realized with shock, because somehow they were hers now. The bond didn't just connect her to Darian and the children, it connected her to the entire pack. And they were dying. She reached out without knowing how, following instinct older than thought. The light pulsed, and where it touched wounded Thornykeep wolves, their injuries began to close. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough. Enough to get back up. Enough to keep fighting. In the courtyard, Darian staggered to his feet, the gashes across his belly knitting together even as he moved. He looked up at the window, at the light, at her. Their eyes met across the distance. Then he threw back his head and howled, a sound of pure dominance that echoed across the battlefield. The Thornykeep wolves answered, rejuvenated, furious. They crashed into the Voidclaw forces with renewed strength, and suddenly the tide was turning, but the light was draining Elira. She could feel it pulling from some deep well inside her, emptying her out. Her vision darkened at the edges. The floor rushed up to meet her. Kessa caught her before she hit, already shifted back to human. What the hell was that? Don't know, Elira managed. Everything hurt. Everything felt hollow. Did it work? Look for yourself. Through the window, Elira watched the Voidclaw forces break. They scattered, retreating toward the breached wall. But one wolf remained, the largest she'd seen yet, with fur so black it seemed to eat the light around it. This one didn't run. It stood in the center of the courtyard and shifted. The man who emerged was tall and skeletal, with skin stretched too tight over sharp bones. His eyes were the same burning red as his wolf form. Lightbringer, his voice carried over the dying battle. You cannot hide forever. You cannot save them all. Darian shifted, standing naked and bleeding but upright. Leave, now, while you still can. The Voidclaw Alpha laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You think this is over? This was just to see if the rumors were true. To see if you were really foolish enough to shelter her. His red eyes found Elira in the window. And you are. Which means we'll be back. With more. With everything. He smiled, showing too many teeth. Enjoy your little victory, Thornykeep. It's the last one you'll ever have. Then he shifted and was gone, disappearing into the smoke with what remained of his forces. Silence fell over the courtyard. The kind of silence that came after violence, heavy with shock and grief and the weight of what had just been lost. Elira sagged against Kessa. The children, are they safe? I told you, the safe room's built like a vault. Nothing's getting through. I need to see them. You need a healer. Kessa started guiding her toward the door. And probably a week of bed rest. What you just did, I've never seen anything like it. Neither had Elira. She didn't even know what she'd done, only that it had come from somewhere primal, somewhere she hadn't known existed. They made it down 2 flights of stairs before Darian appeared. Still naked, still bleeding, but moving like injury was optional. His eyes raked over Elira, and something fierce flashed across his face. She needs medical attention, Kessa said. Lost a lot of blood. I can see that. Darian closed the distance, and before Elira could process what was happening, he'd swept her up into his arms. I've got her. See to the wounded. Organize recovery teams. I want a body count and damage assessment in 1 hour. My lord. Now Kessa. The woman hesitated, then nodded and left. Darian started walking, carrying Elira like she weighed nothing. This close, she could feel his heartbeat, still racing from the fight. Could smell blood and smoke and something distinctly him. I can walk, she said weakly. No, you can't. I just ran up 3 flights of stairs and then you nearly bled out. His grip tightened. What were you thinking? Attacking a Voidclaw wolf with your bare hands? It was going for Rowan. So you thought you'd throw yourself at it instead. He took a corner too fast, making her grab his shoulder for balance. You could have died. So could he. Darian's jaw clenched so hard she heard his teeth grind. They reached the infirmary, a long room lined with cots, most of them already occupied. Healers moved between patients, their hands glowing with the soft green light of pack magic. Darian set Elira on an empty cot with surprising gentleness, then turned to bark orders at the nearest healer. Within moments, an older woman was pressing glowing hands to Elira's chest, and the pain started to recede. Cracked ribs, the healer muttered. Deep lacerations. Mild concussion. What did you fight, girl? A bear? Something like that, Elira managed. The healer worked in silence for several minutes, her magic knitting flesh and bone. It didn't hurt, but it felt strange, like invisible hands rearranging her insides. When it was done, the healer stepped back, looking exhausted. That's all I can do tonight. You'll be sore for days, but you'll live. Keep the bandages clean, get rest, and she glanced at Darian. Try not to fight any more wolves for at least a week. I'll do my best, Elira said. The healer snorted and moved to the next patient. Darian pulled up a chair, sat down heavily. His own wounds were only partially healed, still fresh enough to seep blood. But he didn't seem to notice or care. You saved them, he said quietly. My children. You saved them. You saved all of us, Elira countered. That light, whatever it was, I don't know if I can do it again. I don't know what it was. You're a light bringer. Darian's voice was flat, factual. That Shadow Ridge wolf was right. You have power, real power, the kind that can turn battles, heal wounds, probably do a dozen other things we haven't seen yet. I can't control it. I don't even understand. You will. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Because Kalen, that Voidclaw Alpha, he meant what he said. This isn't over. They'll be back. And next time, they'll bring everything they have. Fear curled in Elira's stomach. How do you know his name? Because I've fought him before. Darian's expression went dark. 15 years ago. Before I was Alpha, he led a raid on a border settlement, killed everyone, men, women, children. Didn't matter. He was hunting someone then too, a Lightbringer. His eyes met hers. I'm guessing he found them. Elira's mouth went dry. What happened? The settlement burned to the ground, no survivors, and Kalen disappeared for over a decade. We thought he was dead. Darian's hands curled into fists. But he wasn't. He was just waiting, hunting, and now he's found you. Then give me to him. The words came out before Elira could stop them. Trade me. End this before more people. Stop. Darian's voice cut like a blade. That's not happening. But if it saves, I said no. He stood abruptly, started pacing. You really don't understand, do you? What you did tonight. That light didn't just heal wounds, it changed something. Every wolf who felt it, who was touched by it, they're bound to you now. Not completely, not like my children, but enough. You're part of this pack whether you want to be or not. Elira struggled to process that. I don't know how to be part of anything. Then learn. Darian stopped in front of her. Because Voidclaw isn't just after you. They're after what you represent. Hope. Healing. Everything they've spent decades trying to destroy. If we give you to them, if we let them win, he shook his head. We might as well burn the keep ourselves. Footsteps in the corridor made them both turn. One of Darian's lieutenants appeared, his face grim. My lord, the children are asking for her. He glanced at Elira uncomfortably. They won't calm down, won't eat. They're threatening to break out of the safe room if we don't bring her. Darian cursed under his breath. Tell them I'll go, Elira interrupted, sliding off the cot. Her legs trembled but held. They're scared. They need to see I'm okay. You need rest. And they need me. She met his eyes. Please. Something shifted in Darian's expression. Fine, but I'm coming with you. And he grabbed her wrist before she could turn away. What you did tonight, throwing yourself at that wolf. That stops now. You're too important to what? Elira pulled her wrist free. To protect the people I care about? To fight for something that matters? I've spent my whole life being too unimportant to matter. I'm not doing that anymore. You could have died. So could you. She gestured at the half-healed wounds across his torso. But you didn't hesitate. You just fought. So don't ask me to be less than what you are. Darian stared at her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, the corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. You're going to be a problem, aren't you? Probably. Good. He turned toward the door. Come on. Let's go see my children before they stage a prison break. The safe room was 3 levels down, behind a door thick enough to stop a siege. The guards unlocked it at Darian's approach, and the moment the door swung open, 3 small bodies hurtled out. They hit Elira simultaneously, nearly knocking her over. She caught them, held on, felt tears burning in her eyes. You're okay, Lyra sobbed into her shoulder. You're okay. You're okay. We felt it, Kael said, his voice muffled against her side. When you were hurt, it hurt us too. I'm sorry, Elira whispered. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Rowan looked up at her with gray eyes too old for his face. You saved Papa. We felt that too. Over the children's heads, Elira met Darian's gaze. Something passed between them, understanding, maybe, or recognition. The bond thrummed, stronger than ever, Come on, Darian said gruffly. Let's get you all somewhere more comfortable, somewhere with real beds and... He paused as the ground shook. Just slightly. Just enough to make dust sift down from the ceiling. The children went very still. What was that? Elira asked. Darian's expression had gone hard. Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone. Darian, but he was already shifting, already running toward the stairs. The lieutenant followed, shouting orders. Another tremor, stronger this time. Papa! Lyra cried out, trying to follow. Elira held her back. No, we stay here. We stay... The explosion hit like a physical blow. The entire keep shook. Stones fell from the ceiling. Somewhere above them, something massive collapsed with a roar like thunder. Through the bond, Elira felt Darian's shock, his rage, his terrible understanding. They're back. They never left. It was a feint. And then the screaming started. Elira grabbed the children, pulled them toward the safe room. Inside. Now. Lock it behind. No. Lyra's face was fierce. We're not leaving you. You have to? Another explosion. Closer this time. The walls cracked. Fire bloomed somewhere in the corridor, spreading fast. A wolf appeared through the smoke. Voidclaw, its red eyes fixed on Elira with singular focus. Behind it came more. Too many. Elira shoved the children behind her, put her back to the safe room door. Her hands shook. She had no weapons, no training, just the memory of light and pain and something that might have been power but felt more like drowning. The wolves stalked closer. Get back, she screamed, throwing her arms wide like she could shield the children with her body alone. Get back or I'll... The lead wolf lunged, and Elira reached for that light again, that power, that thing she didn't understand. Reached deep, desperate, terrified. Nothing happened. The well was empty. She'd used it all healing the wounded. There was nothing left. The wolf's jaws opened wide, going for her throat. Then Darian hit it from the side, both of them crashing into the far wall. He was still in wolf form, still bleeding from new wounds, but he fought with absolute fury. More Thornkeep wolves appeared, flooding the corridor. Kessa, the lieutenant, dozens of others, forming a living barrier between the Voidclaw forces and the children. Get them out! Darian's voice raw and commanding. East Passage, now! Hands grabbed Elira. Kessa, human again, her face set. Come on, we can't hold them long. But now! Elira let herself be pulled, the children running alongside her. They fled through corridors filled with smoke and combat. Bodies littered the ground, both Thornkeep and Voidclaw. The keep was burning, falling, dying around them. They burst out into the courtyard and found it transformed into a war zone. Wolves everywhere tearing at each other, fire consuming the barracks. The eastern wall had collapsed completely, and standing in the center of it all, Kalen in human form, arms spread wide like he was conducting a symphony of destruction. There, he shouted when he saw them. The Lightbringer, take her! A dozen Voidclaw wolves broke from the main fight, charging straight for their group. Run, Kessa said. I'll buy you time. Get to the forest. There's a Shadow Ridge outpost 5 miles north. Tell them, I'm not leaving you. You don't have a choice. Kessa shifted and launched herself at the incoming wolves. Go! Elira ran. The children kept pace, surprisingly fast for their size. Behind them, Kessa's howls mixed with snarls and screaming. They hit the tree line and kept going, branches whipping their faces. Elira's lungs burned. The wounds in her chest, barely healed, pulled and bled. But she didn't stop, couldn't stop, because if she did, those children would die. The forest swallowed them. Darkness and twisted roots and the distant sounds of battle fading behind them. Elira risked a glance back and saw wolves following. Not many, maybe 5, but that was enough. Faster, she gasped. We have to... Her foot caught on a root. She went down hard, the children tumbling with her. Before she could get up, the wolves were there, surrounding them. Elira pulled the children close, felt their small hearts hammering against her. This was it. No more running, no more escaping. The largest wolf shifted, a woman with scars crisscrossing her face and murder in her eyes. Finally, she said, we've been hunting Lightbringers for 20 years. You're the last one. The very last. And when you're dead, she smiled, we win. Forever. Why? Elira demanded. What did we do to you? You exist. The woman's expression twisted with hate. You and your kind. Healing, hope. Making people believe things can get better. That's the real poison. That's what destroys packs from within. Better to burn it all down than let that infection spread. You're insane. Maybe. The woman took a step closer. But we're winning. Your pack is broken. Your king is probably dead, and you... She gestured at Elira's empty hands. You've got nothing left. No power. No tricks. Just you and 3 brats who are about to watch you die. Elira's mind raced. She was right. There was no power left, no hidden reserve, just the bond. Elira closed her eyes and reached out along that connection. Not to Darian, who was too far away, too deep in his own battle, but to the children, to the bright, fierce, unbreakable thing that linked them. I need you, she thought desperately. I need your strength. And they gave it. Power flooded into her. Not the healing light from before, but something different, raw, primal. The children's fear and love and absolute refusal to let her go. It poured into her like liquid fire, and Elira gasped as it filled the empty places. When she opened her eyes, they were glowing. The Voidclaw woman took a step back. What? Elira stood, the children rising with her, their hands locked together. The power built between them, fed by their bond, growing stronger with every heartbeat. You wanted to see what a Lightbringer can do? Elira's voice didn't sound like her own. It sounded like thunder, like starlight given voice. Let me show you. The light exploded outward, not gentle this time, not healing, destroying. It hit the Voidclaw wolves like a hammer. They screamed, their fur smoking, their bodies thrown back into trees hard enough to crack bark. The woman tried to shift, tried to run, but the light caught her, held her, and Elira felt something dark inside the woman's chest, something twisted and wrong. She reached for it, ripped it out. The woman collapsed, gasping, her eyes wide with shock. When she tried to shift again, nothing happened. Her wolf was just gone, burned away by light too pure for it to survive. The other wolves fled, limping and broken. Elira stood in the sudden silence, the power draining away as quickly as it had come. The children sagged against her, exhausted. Did we kill her? Lyra whispered. Elira looked at the woman on the ground, still breathing, but changed, broken in ways that had nothing to do with bones. No, she said quietly. Something worse. Behind them, footsteps. Elira spun, ready to fight again, but it was Darian who emerged from the trees, still in wolf form, limping badly, covered in so much blood it was impossible to tell what was his and what wasn't. He shifted, collapsed to his knees. Darian! Elira lunged for him, the children right behind her. Are you... We held them, he gasped. Barely. Kalen retreated when he felt... His eyes found hers. What did you do? The bond went white hot. I thought... I don't know. Elira pressed her hands to the worst of his wounds, wishing uselessly for healing power she didn't have anymore. I just did what I had to. Darian laughed, a broken, painful sound. You burned out her wolf. I felt it through the bond. You didn't just hurt her, you took away what she was. Horror crawled up Elira's spine. She looked back at the woman who was curled on the ground, making small wounded sounds. I didn't mean to... Don't. Darian caught her hand. Don't apologize for surviving, for protecting my children. You did what you had to do. That's all that matters. But looking at the broken woman, Elira wasn't sure. She thought her power was about healing, about hope. But what she'd just done was neither. It was annihilation. And the worst part was, she'd do it again in a heartbeat if it meant keeping these children safe. The journey back to the keep took 3 hours. Darian could barely walk, leaning heavily on Elira, while the children took turns scouting ahead despite their exhaustion. None of them spoke about what had happened in the forest, about the woman who'd lost her wolf and now lay somewhere in the darkness, more broken than dead. Dawn was breaking when they finally stumbled through the shattered eastern gate. What was left of the Thornakeep looked like a war zone. Half the eastern wall had collapsed. The barracks were still smoldering. Bodies, both wolf and human, littered the courtyard, being carefully collected by shell-shocked survivors. My lord! Kessa appeared from the main hall, her arm in a makeshift sling, her face streaked with soot and blood. She took one look at Darian and rushed forward. "We need to get you to the healers. I'm fine," Darian lied through his teeth. Status report. 43 dead, another 60 wounded, 20 of those critical. The eastern wall is gone. North Tower's structurally unsound. We've got fires still burning in 3 locations. Kessa's voice was flat, mechanical. The voice of someone reporting horror because feeling it would break them. Voidclaw retreated 2 hours ago. Left their own dead behind, which is... She paused. Unusual. They always take their casualties. They were making a point, Darian said grimly, showing us they can afford the losses, that they'll keep coming until... He glanced at Alira. Until they get what they want, Alira finished quietly. Silence fell over the courtyard. Every surviving wolf was looking at her now. She could feel their stares like physical weight. Some looked grateful. These were the ones she'd healed with that first burst of light, but others looked afraid, resentful, like she was a curse they couldn't shake. "The healers," Kessa said again, gesturing toward the main hall. "Both of you, now." This time Darian didn't argue. He let Kessa guide him inside, Elira and the children following. The great hall had been converted into a massive infirmary, every available surface covered with wounded wolves. The smell of blood and burnt fur was overwhelming. The same healer from before appeared, took one look at Darian, and cursed. "You absolute fool. You're barely holding yourself together. If you'd shifted one more time..." She didn't finish, just pointed at an empty cot. "Sit. Don't move. Don't talk. Just bleed quietly while I try to save your stubborn life." Darian sat. The children immediately climbed up beside him, pressing close like they could hold him together through proximity alone. "You too," the healer said to Elira. "Those wounds I patched earlier have reopened. You're leaking." Elira looked down and realized the woman was right. Blood had soaked through the bandages, staining her torn dress. She hadn't even noticed. "I'm fine," she started to say. "That's what he said." The healer jerked a thumb at Darian. "And he's currently dying, so sit down before I make you." Elira sat on the adjacent cot. The healer worked on Darian first, her hands glowing that soft green light. But after a few minutes, she pulled back, frowning. "What?" Darian demanded. "Your healing's not taking properly. Something's interfering." She looked at Elira. "The bond. It's pulling your strength toward her instead of letting you heal." "That's not..." Elira started. "It's exactly how bonds work," the healer interrupted. "Especially new ones. Unstable ones. Your body thinks she needs the energy more than you do, so it's redirecting." She sighed. "I can force it, but it'll be slower, painful. Or..." She glanced between them. "You could just sit closer. Let the bond stabilize. Sometimes proximity helps." Darian looked like he'd rather eat glass. "Fine." He gestured sharply, and Elira moved to his cot. The children immediately rearranged themselves, creating a small nest of bodies with Elira and Darian at the center. The moment they were touching, her shoulder against his, the children sprawled across both their laps. Something in the bond settled, clicked into place. The healer made an approving sound. "Better, much better." She went back to work, and this time her magic flowed smoothly, knitting Darian's worst wounds. Elira tried to ignore how warm Darian was, how solid, how his breathing gradually evened out as the healing took hold, tried to ignore the way his hand had somehow ended up covering hers, his rough palm completely engulfing her smaller fingers. "You're staring," he said without opening his eyes. "You almost died." "But didn't." He cracked one eye open, looked at her. "Because you did something impossible. Again." "I didn't mean to hurt her that badly," Elira said quietly. "That woman. I just wanted to stop her, and then you did what Lightbringers are supposed to do." The voice came from behind them. Elira turned and saw Mara, the Shadow Ridge wolf from before, leaning against a pillar, arms crossed. She looked uninjured, which meant she probably hadn't been involved in the fighting. "Destroy what's broken beyond saving." I thought Lightbringers healed," Elira said. "They do. But healing isn't just about fixing what's wounded. Sometimes it's about burning away the infection." Mara pushed off the pillar, moved closer.
That woman, Senna, her name was. She was Kalen's second, completely corrupted. Her wolf wasn't natural anymore. It was twisted, wrong. You didn't destroy it. You mercy killed it. Didn't feel like mercy, Elira said. It never does. Mara crouched down to eye level.
But that's the burden Lightbringers carry, the choice between saving one and protecting many. Your ancestors understood that. They weren't just healers, they were judges, executioners when necessary. I don't want to be an executioner. Too bad. Mara's amber eyes were sharp. Because Kalen's coming back. And next time he won't send scouts and soldiers. He'll come himself, with everything he has. And you're going to have to choose, kill him, or watch everyone you love die.
Darian sat up despite the healer's protests. Why are you here? What does Shadow Ridge want? Same thing we've always wanted, balance. Mara stood. Voidclaw's been growing too strong, taking territory, destroying packs. If they finish here, if they take the Thornkeep, there's nothing stopping them from consuming the entire northern territories. So my alpha sent me to offer an alliance. In exchange for what? Nothing. Mara's expression was unreadable. We protect the Lightbringer.
You defend your territory. Voidclaw gets crushed between us. Everyone wins. Except Shadow Ridge doesn't do charity, Darian said flatly.
What's the real price?
Mara smiled. Clever. The price is this. When it's over, when Kalen's dead and Voidclaw's broken, the Lightbringer comes with us, to be trained properly, to learn what she is. No. The word came from Lyra, fierce and immediate. She's ours. She's nobody's, Mara said gently. She's her own person, and she deserves to understand her power before it destroys her. I'm not leaving them, Elira said. The certainty in her voice surprised even her. Whatever training I need, it happens here, or not at all. Mara studied her for a long moment. Then she looked at Darian. You'd let a Shadow Ridge wolf stay in your territory? Teach her? Risk us learning all your secrets? If it means she's protected, if it means my children are safe. Darian's voice was hard. Yes. Interesting. Mara's smile widened. Then we have a deal. I'll send word to my alpha. Expect reinforcements within 2 days. Until then, she glanced around the ruined hall. You might want to shore up those defenses. Kalen won't wait long. She started to leave, then paused. One more thing. The woman in the forest. Senna. She's still alive. Still human. What do you want done with her? Darian looked at Elira. Your call. Everyone in the hall was watching now, waiting to see what the Omega-turned Lightbringer would decide, whether she'd show mercy or vengeance. Elira thought about the woman's hate-filled eyes, her absolute certainty that hope was poison, that healing was infection. Bring her here, Elira said. Give her a choice. She can leave, go far away, and never come back. Or she can stay and see what we're building, what hope actually looks like. She tried to kill you, Kessa said from across the hall. Tried to kill the children. I know. Elira met the warrior's eyes. But she was broken by the same people who killed my birth pack, who've spent decades spreading the lie that strength means cruelty. If we kill her, if we throw her away, we're just proving she was right. Silence. Then Darian's hand tightened over hers. Bring her, he told Mara. Under guard. If she tries anything, put her down, but give her the choice. Mara nodded and left. The healer finished her work and moved to Elira, repeating the process. The wounds closed, the pain fading to a dull ache. By the time she was done, dawn light was streaming through the broken windows, painting everything gold. You should rest, the healer said. All of you. You've earned it. But before they could move, a commotion at the hall's entrance made everyone turn. A group of wolves entered, nobles, Elira realized. The same ones who'd been at the choosing. Lady Seraphine led them, her perfect face arranged in an expression of concern that didn't reach her eyes. My lord, she said, dropping into an elegant curtsy. Thank the old gods you're alive. When we heard about the attack, we feared the worst. Where were you? Darian's voice was cold. During the fighting, where were the noble families? Seraphine's smile faltered. We were protecting the archives, the historical records. Surely you understand.
I understand you hid while my people died. Darian stood, and despite his injuries, he radiated menace. You and every other noble family, safe in your estates while servants and soldiers fought Voidclaw. You had to preserve your own skin. Darian cut her off. And now you're here. Why? To offer condolences? To pledge support you should have given 12 hours ago? Seraphine's expression hardened. We're here because the council demands answers. That girl, she pointed at Elira without looking at her. She's brought disaster on this pack. Voidclaw attacked because of her. Our people died because of her. And yet you continue to shelter her, to elevate her above... Above you? Darian's voice dropped to something dangerous. Yes, I do. Because in one night, she did more for this pack than your entire bloodline has done in generations. She fought. She bled. She saved lives, including mine. While you... He gestured at the assembled nobles. All of you. You did nothing. That's not fair, one of the other nobles protested. We're not warriors. We're your parasites, Kessa said flatly, appearing at Darian's side. Living off pack resources, claiming status through birth instead of earning it. And the moment real danger came, you scattered like rabbits. The nobles bristled, but none of them could meet Kessa's eyes, couldn't deny the accusation. Things are changing, Darian said into the silence. The old ways, bloodlines, noble privilege, Omegas knowing their place, that ends now. Anyone who fights for this pack, who bleeds for it, earns their place in it. Status comes from actions, not ancestors. You can't be serious, Seraphine said. The hierarchy exists for a reason. Without it, we're no better than rogues. The hierarchy, Darian said, got 43 of my wolves killed last night. So yes, I'm serious. You want to keep your estates? Your titles. Earn them. Fight in the next battle. Contribute something beyond criticism and cowardice. He turned his back on them. A deliberate insult. We're done here. Leave. The nobles filed out, their faces twisted with anger and humiliation. But they left. Because for all their posturing, none of them were stupid enough to challenge an alpha who'd just survived Voidclaw and lived to tell about it. When they were gone, Darian sat down heavily. That's going to cause problems. Good, Elira said. Some problems are worth having. He looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, something like warmth flickered in those cold gray eyes. You're going to turn my entire pack upside down, aren't you? Probably, Elira admitted. Is that a problem? Ask me again when we're not all half dead. But he was almost smiling, almost. The children had fallen asleep during the confrontation, sprawled across both their laps in an exhausted tangle. Lyra's hand was fisted in Elira's shirt. Kael had his head on Darian's shoulder. Rowan was somehow touching both of them, like he couldn't bear to choose. They love you, Darian said quietly. Really love you. It's not just the bond anymore. I love them too, Elira said, and realized it was true. Completely, fiercely true. I'd die for them. I know, you almost did. Twice. Darian was quiet for a moment. I need to tell you something about their mother, about Elena. Elira waited, sensing this was important. She was everything I wasn't, Darian continued. Soft where I was hard, kind where I was brutal. She balanced me, made me better. And when she died, his voice caught. I blamed the children, not consciously, not deliberately, but I looked at them and saw what I'd lost instead of what I'd been given. So I pulled away, became the king instead of their father, and they suffered for it. You were grieving, Elira said. I was selfish. Darian looked at his sleeping children. I let them go silent because their voices reminded me of hers. Let them become ghosts because I couldn't face being alive without her. And then you showed up, this Omega I'd never met, who had every reason to hate me for how I treated her. And you gave them back their voices, their joy, their life. He turned to face her fully, and the expression on his face was raw, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. I don't know what this bond is, he said. Don't know if it's fate or magic or just desperation making us feel things that aren't real. But I know this. I trust you with my children. Trust you with my pack. And he hesitated. I'm starting to trust you with me. Elira's throat tightened.
I don't know how to be what you need.
You already are.
His hand came up, cupped her cheek with surprising gentleness.
You're brave when you should be terrified, fierce when you should be broken.
You chose to stay when anyone else would have run. That's... He shook his head. That's everything.
I'm still just an Omega, Elira whispered. Still nobody.
No. Darian's thumb brushed across her cheekbone. You're a lightbringer, a fighter. The person my children chose, the person I'm choosing. That makes you everything.
The bond flared between them, warm and bright and undeniable. Elira leaned into his touch, let herself feel the impossible hope blooming in her chest.
What happens now? She asked. Now we rebuild. Prepare. Train you properly, so next time you don't have to burn yourself out saving us.
Darian's expression hardened.
And when Voidclaw comes again, because they will, we'll be ready. All of us. Together.
Together, Elira echoed.
Movement at the hall's entrance made them both look up.
Mara had returned, and she wasn't alone.
Senna stumbled between two Shadow Ridge guards, her face hollow, her eyes empty. Without her wolf, she looked smaller, broken.
She agreed to come, Mara said. Didn't fight, didn't run, just... She gestured at the broken woman. This.
Darian started to rise, but Elira put a hand on his arm. Let me. She carefully extricated herself from the sleeping children and crossed to where Senna stood. Up close, the woman looked even worse.
Skin gray, hands shaking, breathing shallow, like she'd forgotten how. I took your wolf, Elira said quietly. I'm sorry.
Senna's laugh was broken glass.
You're sorry, you destroyed me, and you're sorry.
Yes.
I can't shift, can't hunt, can't feel the pack bond.
Senna's voice cracked.
I'm nothing now. Worse than Omega. Worse than human. I'm empty.
No, Elira said.
You're free.
Senna's head snapped up.
What? Your wolf was corrupted.
Twisted by Kaelin into something that only knew hate and violence. I didn't destroy you. I freed you from what was destroying you. Elira stepped closer. And now you get to choose. Maybe for the first time in your life. What do you want to be?
I don't...
Senna's eyes were wild. I don't know how to be anything else. Then learn. Elira held out her hand. Stay, watch. See what a pack can be when it's built on something other than fear. And when you're ready, when you've figured out who you are without the poison, decide if you want to be part of it. Senna stared at the offered hand like it was a snake.
Why? Why would you let me stay after what I tried to do?
Because hope isn't weakness, Elira said. And mercy isn't the same as stupidity. You're broken right now. But broken things can heal, if they choose to. Silence stretched. Then slowly Senna reached out and took Elira's hand. The bond pulsed, not claiming, not binding, but acknowledging. This woman was under Elira's protection now, part of her responsibility. Across the hall, she felt Darian's approval through the bond, felt the pack's confusion and curiosity, felt the first fragile threads of something new taking shape. Kessa, Darian called. Find her quarters. Put a guard on her door, for her protection as much as ours. And make sure she eats, sleeps, gets whatever healing she needs. Kessa looked like she wanted to argue, but she nodded. Yes, my lord. As Senna was led away, Mara moved to stand beside Elira.
That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the stupidest.
Can't it be both? Elira asked.
Mara laughed. I like you. My alpha's going to like you too. Which is good, because if you survive what's coming, you're going to need all the allies you can get. And if I don't survive, then at least you'll die knowing you changed something.
Mara's expression grew serious. Voidclaws held power through fear for decades. They've convinced everyone that strength means cruelty, that hope is weakness. You're proving them wrong just by existing. That's more dangerous to them than any army. Great, Elira said. So I'm a symbol. No, you're a revolution. Mara glanced at Darian, who was watching them with wary eyes. And he knows it. That's why he's protecting you. Not just because of the bond or the children, but because you're going to reshape everything, whether you mean to or not. Elira looked around the ruined hall, at the wounded being tended, at the survivors working together to clean up the carnage, at Darian and the children, her family now, watching her like she was something precious. "I don't know how to be a revolution," she admitted. "Neither did your ancestors," Mara said. "They just did what felt right and let the world catch up. Same thing you're doing." Before Elira could respond, a shout went up from the courtyard. She rushed to the window and saw wolves flooding through the gates, not Void Claw this time. These wore silver and blue, Shadow Ridge colors. "Reinforcements," Mara said with satisfaction. "Right on time. Now the real work begins." The Shadow Ridge wolves spread through the courtyard, immediately beginning repairs on the damaged walls. Others carried supplies, food, medicine, weapons. They worked with quiet efficiency, and slowly the Thornykeep wolves joined them. Pack boundaries dissolving in the face of common threat. Elira felt something shift in her chest. Not the bond this time. Something bigger. The sense that she was watching the beginning of something that couldn't be stopped. Darian appeared at her side, the children trailing behind him. "This is going to get complicated." "It already is," Elira said. "Voidclaw won't tolerate this. An alliance between Thornykeep and Shadow Ridge. They'll see it as an act of war." "Good," Lyra said fiercely. "Let them come. We'll be ready." Darian looked down at his daughter with something like pride. "Yes, we will." He took Elira's hand, not possessively, not demandingly, but like he was holding something valuable, something he'd finally realized he didn't want to lose. "Together?" he asked. Elira thought about everything that had brought her here, the years of being invisible, the terror of the choosing. The moment three children had looked at her and seen something worth claiming, the battles fought and the power awakened and the impossible bond that tied her to this broken, fierce, complicated man. "Together," she said. And for the first time since this all began, Elira felt something that might actually be hope. Real hope. Not the desperate kind born from having nothing left to lose, but the dangerous kind that came from having everything to fight for. The kind of hope that could change the world, or burn it down trying. 3 days of preparation felt like 3 years. The Shadow Ridge wolves worked alongside Thornykeep's survivors, rebuilding walls and fortifying positions. Elira trained with Mara every morning until her muscles screamed, learning to call her power without burning herself out. Learning control. The children shadowed her everywhere, refusing to let her out of their sight for more than a few minutes. And Darian watched it all with calculating eyes, planning for a war everyone knew was coming. On the 4th morning, the scouts returned. Elira was in the training yard practicing defensive stances with a practice sword when Kessa came running. Her face was pale beneath the soot and sweat. "They're coming," she said. "The full Voidclaw force. Kalen's leading them personally. They'll be here by nightfall." The practice sword slipped from Elira's fingers. "How many?" "Over 300, maybe more." Kessa's voice was tight. "We have maybe 150 fighters total, counting Shadow Ridge. Even with the fortifications, it won't be enough," Elira finished. "Not in a straight fight." "No." Darian's voice came from behind them. He stood at the yard's entrance, already dressed for battle. Leather armor reinforced with steel, weapons strapped to his back and thighs. He looked every inch the war-hardened alpha, which is why we're not giving them one. He gestured for them to follow and strode toward the main hall, where the combined war council was already assembling. Wolves from both packs filled the space. Warriors, strategists, healers. Mara stood at the center, a map spread across the table. "Kalen will expect us to hole up here," Darian said without preamble. "Defend the keep until he starves us out or breaches the walls. That's what any sensible alpha would do." "So we do the opposite," Mara said, catching on. "We take the fight to them." "Not all of us." Darian's finger traced a line on the map. "The main force stays here, makes noise, lights fires, looks like we're preparing for a siege. Meanwhile," he tapped a spot in the northern forest. "A strike team hits Kalen directly, take out their leadership, the army falls apart." "That's suicide," one of the Thornykeep warriors said. "Kalen's the strongest alpha in the territories. You'd need—" His eyes drifted to Elira. "Oh." Everyone was looking at her now. Elira's stomach clenched. "No," she said. I'm not
I can't control it reliably. What if I... You will. Mara's voice was firm. Because you'll have us. Me, Darian, our best fighters. We protect you, get you close enough, and you do what you did to Senna. Take away his wolf. And if it doesn't work? Then we die fighting, Darian said bluntly. But at least we die trying something other than cowering behind walls. Elira looked around the room at faces worn by battle and loss. These wolves trusted her, believed in her. It terrified her more than anything Voidclaw could do. The children, she said. If this goes wrong, they need to be protected. Hidden somewhere Kaelin can't. Already arranged, Kessa interrupted. There's a bunker 3 miles north, reinforced, hidden. They'll be safe there with guards I'd trust with my life. They won't want to go. They don't get a choice. Darian's expression was hard. This is war. And in war, you protect what matters most. 2 hours later, Elira stood in the children's chambers, trying to explain why she had to leave, why they couldn't come with her. This isn't fair, Lyra said, tears streaming down her face. You said we're family. Family stays together. Family protects each other, Elira countered gently. And right now, the best way I can protect you is to make sure Kaelin never gets near you. But what if you don't come back? Rowan's voice was small, terrified. Elira pulled him close, then reached for the other two, gathering them all against her. Then you remember that I love you, that you're brave and fierce and stronger than you know. And you keep going. Promise you'll come back, Kael demanded. Promise. Elira wanted to. Wanted to lie and say, of course she would, that everything would be fine, but these children deserve better than comfortable lies. I promise I'll fight like hell to get back to you, she said instead. That's the best I can do. Darian appeared in the doorway, already in full battle gear. It's time. The children clung tighter. Elira had to physically pry their fingers loose, her heart breaking with every separated touch. Kessa appeared to escort them to the bunker, and their cries followed Elira all the way down the corridor. They'll be safe, Darian said quietly as they walked. I've positioned our best warriors at that location. If we fall here, at least they survive. We're not going to fall, Elira said, trying to believe it. No. Darian stopped, turned to face her. We're not, because I refuse to let those children lose anyone else. Not you, not me, not anyone. He reached up, cupped her face with surprising tenderness. When this is over, when we've won, I'm going to ask you properly. To be part of this family, not just as their caretaker or some bond-created accident, but as... He hesitated. As mine, if you want that. Elira's breath caught. You're really choosing now to bring this up? Right before a battle we might not survive? Seemed like the right motivation to not die. His thumb brushed across her cheek. So, what do you say? Ask me again when we're both still breathing, Elira said, and I'll give you an answer. Deal. He leaned down, pressed his forehead to hers. Through the bond, she felt everything, his fear, his determination, his fierce protectiveness. And underneath it all, something that felt dangerously like love. Then he pulled back, and the Alpha King returned. Let's go kill an enemy. The strike team assembled in the courtyard as the sun began its descent. 20 wolves total, including Elira. Mara and her Shadow Ridge fighters formed the core. Darian would lead, and Elira would be the weapon they either used to win or died protecting. Remember, Mara said as they prepared to move out, stealth until we can't be stealthy anymore. We get close, we hit hard. We don't stop until Kaelin's down. Questions? Silence. Then let's end this. They moved into this forest as the last light faded, 20 shadows flowing through the trees. Elira had never felt more alive or more terrified. Every sound seemed amplified. Every branch crack could be an enemy. The bond thrummed between her and Darian, a constant awareness of where he was. She could feel his focus, sharp as a blade. Feel the moment he scented the enemy ahead. They came over a ridge and saw it. The Voidclaw army spread through the valley below like a plague. Hundreds of wolves in loose formation, all facing the Thornykeep. And at the center, in human form and seemingly unconcerned, stood Kaelin. He was addressing his forces, voice carrying up the slope. No mercy, no hesitation.
The Lightbringer dies tonight, and with her, any hope this territory has of resisting us. We will burn the Thornykeep to ash and salt the earth where it stood. This is—" He stopped mid-sentence, his head turned, those red eyes scanning the ridge.
"He knows we're here," Mara whispered. "Move now!" The strike team exploded down the slope. Voidclaw wolves scattered, surprised by the sudden assault. Illyra ran in the center of the formation, protected on all sides by warriors who cut through enemies like they were made of paper. But Kaelin wasn't surprised. He smiled. "Finally," he said, and shifted. The wolf that emerged was massive, easily twice the size of any normal alpha. Black fur that seemed to absorb light. Red eyes that glowed like coals. He threw back his head and howled, and the entire Voidclaw force wheeled to face the strike team. "Protect the Lightbringer!" Darian roared, shifting mid-stride. The Thornkeep and Shadow Ridge wolves formed a defensive circle around Illyra as Voidclaw crashed into them like a wave. The battle was chaos. Teeth and claws and screaming. Illyra tried to push forward, tried to get close to Kaelin, but there were too many bodies between them. Too much violence. A Voidclaw wolf broke through the defensive line, lunged for her throat. Mara intercepted it, her jaws closing on its neck, but 3 more took its place. "I can't get close," Illyra shouted over the din. "There's too many." "Then make yourself a path," Mara snarled, throwing another attacker aside. "Use your power. Burn them." "I'll hit our people too." "Then we die anyway," Darian's voice raw and desperate. "Do it!" Illyra closed her eyes and reached for the light. It came easier now after days of practice. But this time she shaped it differently. Not a burst of healing or destruction, but a focused beam. A blade made of pure radiance. She opened her eyes and thrust her hands forward. The light cut through the battlefield like a sword through flesh, carving a path straight to Kaelin. Every Voidclaw wolf it touched screamed and fled, their fur smoking. Kaelin stood his ground. "Come on then, little Lightbringer," he said, shifting back to human form. "Let's see what you're really made of." Illyra ran. The strike team followed, keeping the path clear. But as she got closer, Kaelin raised his hand, and the ground beneath her feet erupted. She went flying, crashed hard into a tree. Her vision swam. Through the bond, she felt Darian's panic. Kaelin was on her before she could stand, one hand wrapped around her throat, lifting her off the ground. "You know what's funny?" he said conversationally. "I've killed dozens of Lightbringers, and every single one thought they were special, thought their power made them invincible." His grip tightened. "It doesn't. You're just as breakable as anyone else." Illyra clawed at his hand, trying to call the light, but she couldn't focus, couldn't breathe. "The trick," Kaelin continued, "is getting close before they can use their power. And you—" He leaned in, his breath hot on her face. "You're untrained, desperate, emotional, so easy to manipulate." Black spots danced across her vision. The bond screamed with Darian's rage, but he was too far away, fighting through too many enemies. She was going to die, just like her birth pack, just like every other Lightbringer Kaelin had hunted. Then Senna's voice echoed in her mind. "You destroyed me, and you're sorry." And Illyra realized she'd been using her power wrong, trying to be gentle with it, controlled, because she was afraid of what it could do, afraid of being a destroyer instead of a healer. But healing sometimes meant cutting out the infection. Illyra stopped fighting Kaelin's grip. Instead, she reached up and pressed both palms to his chest. "What are you—" he started. She poured everything into him, every ounce of light, every bit of power, not trying to take his wolf, trying to burn away everything that made him him. Kaelin screamed. He dropped her, stumbled back. His chest was glowing, light spilling between his ribs like he'd swallowed the sun. He clawed at it, trying to dig it out, but it was inside him now, spreading. "What did you do?" he roared. "What I should have done to Senna," Illyra gasped, forcing herself upright. "Given you a choice. Be better or be nothing." Kaelin's wolf burst out of him, but it wasn't the massive creature from before. It was smaller, normal-sized, and its eyes were no longer red, just gray. Confused. The transformation had burned away the corruption, the twisted power, left only what was natural. Kaelin shifted back, naked and shaking. He looked at his hands like they belonged to someone else. "I can't. The power's gone. I can't feel—" Your wolf's still there, Alira said, but the thing you twisted it into isn't. You're just a wolf now, not a monster. Around them, the battle was ending. The Voidclaw forces, seeing their alpha transformed, were scattering, running. The strike team let them go, too exhausted to pursue. Darian limped over, still in wolf form, blood matting his fur. He shifted and immediately pulled Alira against him. Are you hurt? No, I'm... She looked at Kaelin, who was staring at the battlefield with dawning horror. I'm okay. What did you do to him? Showed him what he really was underneath all the hate. Alira pulled away from Darian, moved to stand in front of Kaelin. You spent decades convincing yourself that cruelty was strength, that hope was weakness. But you were wrong. And deep down, you knew it. That's why you had to keep killing Lightbringers. Because every time you saw one, you saw proof that another way was possible. Kaelin's hands were still shaking. I killed so many, destroyed so much. How do I... His voice broke. How do I live with that? The same way anyone lives with their past, Alira said. You choose to be better, or you don't. That's up to you. She turned away from him, gestured to Mara. Take him into custody, keep him alive, let him see what we build. You're not going to execute him? Mara asked, surprised. No. Alira looked at the scattered Voidclaw forces, at her own battered strike team. Enough people have died. If we can break the cycle, show that redemption is possible, maybe others will choose differently too. Darian's hand found hers. Through the bond, she felt his approval, his pride. The march back to the keep took hours. They moved slowly, carrying wounded, watching for ambushes that never came. The Voidclaw forces had scattered completely, leaderless and broken. Dawn was breaking when they finally reached the gates and found the entire Thornykeep pack waiting for them. The moment they saw Darian and Alira alive, walking side by side, a cheer went up. It started small, from the warriors who'd held the keep, then spread to the healers, the servants, the children too young to fight. Even the nobles stood at the edges, their expressions complicated but no longer hostile. Kessa pushed through the crowd, the 3 royal pups clinging to her. Told them to wait in the bunker, she said. They refused, said they'd know if you were alive through the bond. The children broke free and ran. They hit Alira and Darian simultaneously, wrapping around them with desperate strength. You came back, Lyra sobbed. You both came back. Told you we would, Darian said roughly, his hand stroking his daughter's hair. You promised you'd fight, Kael corrected, looking up at Alira. You kept your promise. Always will, Alira said, pulling him close. They stood there in the growing light, a family forged in fire and blood and impossible choices, while the pack watched. Then Darian cleared his throat and gently disentangled himself. He took Alira's hand and pulled her forward, facing the assembled wolves. I'm going to say this once, he announced, his voice carrying across the courtyard. So listen well, this Omega, this woman, saved us. Not just last night, not just in the battle, but from ourselves. From a system that valued bloodlines over character, that measured worth by birth instead of actions. He looked at Alira, and there was something in his eyes that made her breath catch. Alira Vance is not an Omega anymore, he continued. She's a Lightbringer, a warrior, the person my children chose to love, the person I choose to stand beside. He raised their joined hands. She's my equal, my partner. And if this pack has a problem with that, his expression hardened. You can leave, right now, because this is the new order, the one we build together, or we don't build at all. Silence fell over the courtyard. Then Kessa stepped forward. She dropped to one knee, head bowed. I follow the Lightbringer. I follow the king. I follow the new order. One by one, the warriors followed suit. Then the healers, the servants, even, reluctantly, some of the nobles, until the entire pack was kneeling except for Alira and Darian and the 3 children. Rise, Darian said. We don't kneel anymore. We stand together. The pack rose as one. And Alira felt it, the bond expanding, stretching to encompass not just Darian and the children, but every wolf who'd just pledged themselves. She was part of something bigger now, something that had been broken and was slowly, painfully learning to heal. Mara appeared at her elbow. My alpha wants to meet you. When you're ready. Discuss formal alliance terms between our packs. Tell him I'll come, Illyra said. But not as some prize to be traded or symbol to be displayed. As myself. Take it or leave it. Mara grinned. Oh, he's definitely going to like you. Over the next few weeks, the Thornkeep transformed. The walls were rebuilt, stronger than before. The nobles who'd fled during the battle found themselves with new requirements. Train with the warriors, contribute to pack defense, or lose their titles. Most chose to leave. A few surprised everyone by staying and actually trying. Senna, stripped of her corrupted wolf, slowly came back to herself. She worked in the healing wards, helping tend the wounded. Wouldn't speak about her time with Voidclaw, but her actions said everything that needed saying. Kaelin remained in custody, watching the pack rebuild with haunted eyes. Illyra visited him sometimes, not to gloat, but to talk. About choices and consequences and the long road toward becoming something other than what you'd been. I don't deserve mercy, he said during one visit. Probably not, Illyra agreed, but you're getting it anyway. What you do with it is up to you. The children thrived. They laughed again, played, argued over ridiculous things like normal kids. Lyra started training with wooden swords, determined to be strong like Illyra. The boys studied strategy with their father, asking endless questions about pack politics and war. And Darian slowly remembered how to be something other than just the Alpha King. He smiled sometimes, actual smiles that reached his eyes. He played with his children instead of just watching them. He stood beside Illyra during council meetings, asking her opinion, trusting her judgment. One evening, a month after the battle, he found her on the wall watching the sunset. I have a question for you, he said, coming to stand beside her. I know. Illyra glanced at him. You've been working up to it for 3 days. Just ask already. Darian laughed, a sound that still startled her with its rarity. Remember what I said, before the battle, about asking you properly? I remember. Well, he turned to face her fully. We're both still breathing, so I'm asking. Illyra Vance, Lightbringer, pain in my ass. Will you stand as my mate? Not because of bonds or prophecy or convenience, but because I love you. Because you make me better. Because I can't imagine building this new world without you. Illyra's eyes stung. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Is that a yes? It's a... She paused. I have conditions. Darian raised an eyebrow. Of course you do. I want to say in pack decisions. Real say, not token presence. I want to continue training with Mara, learning my power, and... She took a breath. I want the children to grow up knowing that worth comes from who you are, not what you were born as. Promise me that. Done, Darian said immediately. Anything else? Yes. Illyra moved closer, close enough to feel his warmth. Promise you won't try to protect me from everything. I'm not fragile. I'm not something to be sheltered. I'm a fighter, Darian finished. I know. Trust me, I know. His hands came up to frame her face. I promise. All of it. Now will you please give me an answer before I lose my nerve? Illyra smiled. Yes. I'll stand as your mate. He kissed her then, fierce and gentle all at once. Through the bond, she felt his joy, his relief, his absolute certainty that this was right. When they finally pulled apart, they found 3 small faces peering around the corner of the wall. We knew it, Lyra crowed. Kael owes me his dessert for a week. You were betting on us? Illyra asked, trying to sound stern and failing. Obviously, Rowan said. Papa's been acting weird for days. It was pretty clear what was happening. Darian sighed. My children, everyone, masters of subtlety. They ran over, wrapping around both adults. And standing there on the wall with the family she'd never thought she'd have, Illyra felt something she'd stopped believing in years ago. Peace. The claiming ceremony happened 2 weeks later. Not the elaborate noble affair it should have been, but a simple gathering in the rebuilt Great Hall. Wolves from Thornkeep and Shadow Ridge mingled freely. Even some of the scattered Voidclaw wolves had returned, stripped of their corruption, seeking to be part of something better. Illyra wore a simple dress, white, not the elaborate silks of nobility. Darian stood beside her in his formal alpha leathers, looking uncomfortable with all the ceremony but enduring it.
The ancient words were spoken.
The bonds acknowledged. And when Darian claimed her as his mate before the assembled packs, Illyra felt the bond shift one final time, settling into something permanent, unbreakable. "You're stuck with me now," she whispered. "Good," Darian whispered back. "I don't plan on letting go." The celebration lasted until dawn. Wolves danced and drank and told stories of the battle that had changed everything. The children fell asleep in a pile in the corner, still wearing their formal clothes. As the sun rose, Illyra stood at the window watching light paint the rebuilt keep gold. Darian came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "No regrets?" he asked quietly. "Not even one." "Good, because I'm going to need you for what comes next." "Which is?" "Changing the entire Northern Territories." Darian rested his chin on top of her head. "Other packs have already sent envoys. They've heard what happened here, how an Omega became a Lightbringer, how we defeated Voidclaw without annihilating them. They want to know if it's real, if the old ways can actually change." "And what did you tell them?" "To come see for themselves." He turned her to face him. "We're going to build something that's never existed before. A pack, a territory, where strength comes from character, not bloodlines. Where Omegas aren't invisible and Alphas aren't tyrants. Where people like you can change the world just by refusing to stay silent." "That's ambitious," Illyra said. "So are you." Darian smiled. "Think you can handle it?" Illyra looked past him at the Great Hall. At Senna helping clean up, moving with purpose instead of emptiness. At Kaelin sitting quietly in the corner, watching the celebration with something that might have been hope. At the children sleeping peacefully, their faces free of the haunted expressions they'd worn for so long. At the pack that had rejected her now accepting her as one of their own. "I think," she said slowly, "that I spent my whole life being told I was nothing, being invisible. And I believed it because everyone else believed it. But you saw something different. Your children saw something different. And maybe," she looked back at Darian, "maybe the point isn't whether I can handle it. Maybe the point is that I get to try." "That's my girl," Darian said, and kissed her. 6 months later, the first delegation arrived from the Southern Territories. Then the Eastern Packs. Word spread like wildfire. The Thornakeep was accepting anyone who wanted to build something new. Wolves who'd been cast out for being too weak. Omegas who'd run from abusive packs. Even a few Alphas who were tired of the old brutality. They came in ones and twos at first, then in groups, then in waves. And Illyra stood at the gates welcoming them, this woman who'd once been unwanted, showing them that change was possible, that you didn't have to accept the world as it was. You could build something better. The children grew. Lyra became a fierce warrior, defending the weak with her mother's compassion and her father's strength. Kael studied diplomacy, helping negotiate alliances between packs that had been enemies for generations. Rowan developed a healing gift, learning from his mother to use power gently. Darian transformed from a tyrant king into something resembling a just leader. He still had edges, still made hard decisions, but he'd learned to temper strength with mercy, to ask instead of demand, to lead instead of rule, and Illyra became exactly what Mara had predicted, a revolution. Not because she was powerful, though she was, not because she was mated to an alpha king, though she was that too, but because she'd been invisible and chose to be seen, been told she was worthless and chose to matter, been offered the choice between hiding or fighting and chose to fight every single time. One evening, years after that first impossible choosing, Illyra stood on the wall watching her children train in the courtyard below. Darian joined her, gray threading his dark hair now, scars from a dozen battles mapping his skin. "Do you ever miss it?" he asked. "The quiet life, before all this." Illyra thought about the girl she'd been, silent, afraid, trying so hard to disappear. Thought about everything that had brought her here. The terror and the pain and the impossible choices. "Not even for a second," she said, because that quiet life had been death in slow motion. And this chaos, this constant struggle, this never-ending work of building something better, this was living. Darian took her hand, their fingers intertwining like they'd done it 1,000 times, which they had. Through the bond, she felt his contentment, his love, his absolute certainty that choosing her had been the best decision he'd ever made.
The Southern Council sent another request, he said. They want you to speak at their summit about pack reform, about, he smiled, about how to integrate omegas as equals. 10 years ago, they would have laughed at that idea, Illyra said. 10 years ago, you were invisible. Now you're changing their entire world.
Illyra looked out over the Thornkeep, over the walls they'd rebuilt, the families they'd welcomed, the future they were creating one stubborn choice at a time. We're changing it, she corrected. All of us. Together. Together, Darian agreed. And as the sun set over the northern territories, painting everything in shades of gold and fire, Illyra allowed herself to believe in something she'd thought impossible, that an unwanted Omega could become someone worth choosing, that broken things could heal, that hope wasn't weakness but the fiercest strength of all, that sometimes the best revolution started with a single person refusing to stay silent, and that love, real, messy, complicated, hard-won love, could actually change the world. One choice at a time, one day at a time, forever.